Welcome back to PSN News. I'm Sofia Miranda. I'm joined tonight by Adrianna Gallucci, one of the general managers of CommRadio. So thank you so much for coming tonight, Adrianna. But let's just start from the beginning. When did your passion for sports and journalism flourish?
Yeah, I grew up in a sports family. Pretty much everybody in my family plays sports. My brother's committed to Hobart to play lacrosse. I have cousins who are playing Division I and are hoping to go to Division I as well. So I was always surrounded by it from a really young age. And my dad was the one who got me hooked onto sports. He is a huge baseball fan. He's a huge hockey fan and football fan. So I took his Mets and I took his Rangers, but the Jets were a losing team at the time, and I just couldn't do another losing New York team. So I took in the Patriots. I'm a bandwagon, I'll say that. But those are some of my best memories growing up, was watching the Mets with my dad, watching their 2015 World Series run. And I think at the time I was about 13, 14. And, you know, it's a really tough age, especially when you're going into high school. And sports was one of the things that I latched onto, and it was one of the things that really made me who I was in high school. I ended up working with my high school's baseball team for 5 years, starting when I was in 8th grade, and I was doing all of their media stuff. I formed a bunch of really great relations. And when it came time to applying for colleges, I always knew I wanted to go to Penn State. That was my dream school. And I mean, we have one of the best communication schools in the entire world. I've always loved to write. I've loved to talk. That's one of the things you know about me, if you know me well, is I can definitely talk. So I knew I wanted to do something in journalism, whether that was writing or putting together packages or producing a story or just sharing stories for people who don't have that voice. I wanted to combine all of those elements, and I ended up here.
Perfect. Obviously, your current position is being general manager of CommRadio. How did you start in the club, and also how did you become a leader on it?
My best friend, is now my best friend, she's also in CommRadio, but we both came to campus and we were freshmen and we didn't really know what we wanted to do. And she said, this CommRadio club is having an interest meeting. It was like a Thursday in August. She said, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. And I just fell in love with it. Those people became some of my best friends. I've worked hard for every single opportunity. And then at the end of my freshman year, they were taking applicants for management. And I just decided to throw my hat into the ring, and they offered me new member coordinator. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had to say yes. It was just one of those things where it comes upon you, and it's one of those opportunities you have to take. And my sophomore year, I was new member coordinator. I trained about, I want to say, roughly 140 to 150 freshmen and new members over the course of several weeks in the fall and in the spring. And it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Looking back on my college experience, it was fun. It was stressful. It was definitely crazy at times, but it was rewarding. And at the end of my sophomore year, they were taking applicants for general managers. And I said, the worst that they can tell me is no. I was younger than everybody else going out for the position, but I had the confidence in myself, I had the belief in myself, and I ended up being one of 3 general managers. And it's just been a wild ride, but it's been a fun ride, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
No, amazing. Obviously, you do work for CommRadio. You also do Penn State Sports Night. You mainly covered wrestling for Penn State Sports Night, men's hockey for CommRadio, if I'm not wrong, as an insider. Both teams just had great runs. I think men's hockey might make it to the nationals. Wrestling, just a great sport overall. What were some memorable moments of this season that you can think of?
Oh boy, I guess I'll start with wrestling. I mean, wrestling is one of those sports that I've picked up being in college. From where I'm from, back in New Jersey, wrestling isn't the biggest sport that we have there, but everybody in central Pennsylvania loves wrestling, and obviously with the dynasty that Penn State has built, how could you not? Yeah. So every time I'm in rec hall and feeling that atmosphere, you know that those guys on the mat are going to go out and perform the best that they can. So I would say just being in rec hall, getting to watch guys like Mitchell Messenbrink and Carter Starachi, Greg Kirkfleet, go out and just dominate win after win after win. For hockey, though, it's a little bit more personal. I, through CommRadio, had the wonderful experience of going out to Chicago for the Frozen Confines, which was a trip that was made possible by CommRadio and Jeff Brown in the College of Communications. And every day I'm so grateful for that trip. I got to broadcast on CommRadio Penn State's game against Notre Dame, and while it didn't end so greatly for Penn State, it was the trip of a lifetime. I got to go out to Chicago with some of my best friends and make memories, make some connections with people in the Big Ten, and it's going to be one of those things that I look back on. And when I think about college and my time at Penn State, that trip to Chicago is always going to stand out. But just also being in Pagula and being an insider is one of those things that makes me who I am. It's going to media every single Monday and prepping and thinking of questions, or scribbling things down so we can talk about it on the podcast, or just being on press row with my friends and putting in the work and putting in the long hours. Those are the things that I hold so close to my heart.
Amazing. And obviously, you're a woman in sports. We see, obviously, CommRadio, the majority are men. However, we do see, obviously, we had the women in collective team in CommRadio as well. Do you want to tell me a little bit about it, and also what does it mean to you to be a woman in sports?
Yeah, so the Women of CommRadio Collective was started by one of my predecessors, Emily McGlynn, who was a former GM of CommRadio last year. And it was just a space mainly for the women in the club, but also for everybody to come and talk about the things that really matter to them. And we've been able to do so many amazing things in the collective. We have done goal setting, we've done roundtables, and just talk about the issues that really mean the most to us. We're actually having a meeting tomorrow. We're doing another one of those roundtable discussions, but I want people to know that they can achieve anything that they set their mind to. Nothing in this life is impossible if you put your head down and you work hard. That's one of those things, is if you work hard, you have that confidence and you believe in yourself, those things happen when you make the work happen. So being a woman in sports, I'm proud of that. I'm proud every single time I step into Rec Hall. I'm proud every single time I step into Pagula or I step into Wood for a management meeting. Not only knowing that I'm representing myself, but I'm representing something a lot bigger.
Amazing. Obviously, you can achieve anything. So to finish this, what are your biggest goals into the future, in your future?
I'm going to graduate Penn State next year with a degree in broadcast journalism, minors in sports studies, legal studies, and my certificate in sports journalism. So being a journalist, being a reporter, or I'm also thinking of going to law school, getting my JD, becoming a lawyer in that capacity, but also just continuing to live life every day to the fullest, getting better in the gym, working more on my faith, and just being an all-around well-rounded person.
Amazing. Thank you so much for agreeing to be in this interview, Adrianna. Now, stick around, because coming up next, Gracie and Alicia will have the latest news from across the nation.